I swear, what can I take up on the size of 4.50? Loading. What can I see?
Hello.
Yes, Rosemary, sorry, the meeting had jumped off, but
Yeah, sorry, I just realized that I was talking to myself, so I don't know where.
sorry.
So maybe someone can remind me where I should start from again before the meeting went off.
Yeah, I think you were on alternative livelihood projects that promote environmental justice. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, so I was talking about alternative livelihood projects, and I was saying to look at the context of Abim District and ask ourselves, for example, why do people engage in charcoal burning? And from my analysis, majority of households in Abim District don't actually use charcoal as a source of energy or fuel. It's basically for sale. And so designing any livelihood projects means we need to critically look at the context, and then we need to look at approaches that protect people's livelihoods and as well address the environmental concerns. So what are those alternative livelihood the locals can adapt actually to promote environmental justice? I think one of them is the practice, we need to adapt, or the local people need to adapt the practice. 5 trees, you cut 1. I think the concept of tree planting is still very, very low in our district. And it's a high time that we need to popularize this, and the locals need to highly adopt it, whereby someone should first plant trees before they engage in cutting the tree down. The other thing is when you look through the district, there are a lot of groups, the village loan and saving schemes or associations. And most of these groups actually are basically dealing in saving some kind of money or to boost household income. But it would be very good to interest these groups to embrace tree planting, you know, especially among the members. Like if there is a way we can empower the VSLA groups to plant trees, or even do commercial tree planting, other than just, you know, they can do both commercial planting and also at household level, where every member of the group is tasked to actually plant a tree. That enable them hand from the trees, but also save the environment, you know, grow more trees to protect our environment. Then the other thing that I'm looking at is we need to interest our people in activities like craft making. In Abim District, actually, the concept of craft making is still very low, and yet people have the skills, people have the capacities, and this is something that is a sure way of earning income other than engaging in charcoal burning, for example. So people could actually train.
Calvin, may you mute, please? May you mute? Calvin, may you mute? The host can help us mute Calvin. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I was talking about craft making, and I was saying that actually the local community can, people
Rosemary, please unmute.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we
Yes,
can
please,
hear
we
you.
are getting you.
Yes. Yes. So I was talking about beekeeping. I'm sorry, I'm using a phone and it's disturbing me. So yeah, so I was talking about beekeeping as one of the alternative projects that the communities can embrace. With beekeeping, they can still earn from the honey that that they will be harvesting, but also you cannot keep bees without trees, of course. So at the end of the day, people will be preserving the trees. They will be preserving kind of like forest. They will be planting trees to put their beehives. And then they will also be reaping from the bees, from the honey that that they will be harvesting. Yeah, so those are the few alternative livelihood projects that I have in mind. And I will beg to stop here. There's been a lot of interruptions. I don't know whether I was clear, whether people picked something from the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Rosemary. Indeed, what you've given us is quite insightful and thoughtful. We believe if we take some of the actions or the initiatives you've suggested to us here, we will, basically have some kind of well-informed community, and a community that is doing that will do well financially, a community that will do well in terms of knowledge, and basically a community that will strive towards saving our environment from what it is currently facing. You talked about the information gap, or lack of information on supplements that is that talks about environment, that concerns the protection of our environment from degradation, and basically that is one of really the key factors. I don't know, members here will try to give us strategies that will ensure that we make our communities aware of what the laws say about our environments, what actions they can take when they identify people who are destroying our environment, like what has been reported, how they can get up to protect and preserve our environment. You also hinted on the issue of providing information to the leaders and expecting feedback from them. That's surely a good point. And all these other options you've given us, the alternative livelihood projects that you've given us, I believe those are things that can really improve our communities. I request the members to be patient, the members listening to us to be a little patient, such that we can have our final panelist for the day and then we can try to get the views of everyone, before we close this meeting. At least we want to hear from everyone what perspective they have towards whatever, in relation to whatever is happening in our district. So we'll have Okongo Matthias Owili. He joined us late, but I believe he will be able to take off from where he has phoned us. Is our last panelist for the day. Then we can welcome discussions from the rest of the listeners. Matthias, you are welcome. Introduce yourself to us and take us through what you have to present to us in relation to our environment and what has been going on. Thank you. Matthias, are you with us? If you're there, please unmute and talk to us.
Matthias will be discussing the gap between environmental protection and human capital development in the district. We are very much humbled to receive you, so you can hear you give us your viewpoints to this effect. He calls himself the concerned citizen. You are most welcome, sir. You can unmute, or I will help you unmute. Thank you. Kindly click on the mic on your left hand side of your handset or your gadget, so you can unmute. Or you tap on the link that comes on your gadget, asking you to unmute. In case of any challenges, yes. In case of any challenges, you can write in the chat box, so we can see a way of having you in.
The host, may you please unmute Matthias? He has sent a message asking, to be, you unmute him.
I can only ask him to unmute, so he can turn on. There is a link that goes to his handset, so he can tap on it to unmute. Or let me try making him a host and see what happens. Matthias, there's an icon of a mic on your left hand side of the handset of any gadget that you're using. You can tap on it. It's just a click away.
Okay, Matthias is going to rejoin. I believe the problem persisted and he was unable to unmute himself. Let's give him a few minutes.
Hello.
Hello, you're
Hello,
most
member.
welcome, senior citizen. I mean, concerned citizen, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Tim. Good evening. Sincere apologies. I think I had a technical issue. I tried over 5 minutes to unmute my microphone and I couldn't until I had to get off and rejoin afresh. This discussion has come in very timely and very handy. I wish we could probably have started a little earlier, but never got a very big challenge ahead of us. The future is looking at us. And the question is, what are we giving the future? What is our contribution to the future? Are we just going to watch this phenomenon go under our noses? What are we going to explain to the nature tomorrow? Shall we cry together with the nature? Or we will wait to cry after the nature has finished shedding its tears? The question of environmental degradation, and more specifically, charcoal burning, with a specific reference to Abim that has brought this big topic of discussion today, is something that dates back to, I think it would be difficult for us to say, okay, we can remember who was the first to start burning charcoal in the place, and probably when they started. But nevertheless, not all hope is lost. My area of discussion, I've been requested to look at two things. It is basically on the gap between environmental protection and human capital development in Abim District. And I would want to look at them individually. What are the push factors into these environmental protection issues? What are the major concerns? How did we get here? What is the impact of what is happening? And then where is the gap? What should we do? Colleagues, you should recall that it is also very true that so many people have benefited positively out of this environmental degradation. That is something we can refer to as a very negative coping mechanism. Definitely a number of our people have got to use this as a leeway to raise school fees to take their kids to school. Some of us, you might in one way or another have benefited. It is also probably the cheapest and the only source of energy available to the community. If you look at directly the dealings in charcoal activities, is that wood fuel is what every family in the district uses as a source of energy at home for preparing meals and the rest of the likes of eating and all that, both in schools, other institutions, hospitals, and at home. So it is something that we cannot just wipe out, but probably we need to learn the best practices to have it harmonized. The question does not only rely on the wood fuel usage, but also the levels, the community, the poverty levels, what I call the negative coping mechanism has forced so much people to this trade. And then other people have come in, they have used it as a golden opportunity. Those who read my tweet yesterday in the night, I retweeted something that Isaac had put earlier on, that some people have found gold in charcoal trade in Abim District. So they are riding together with the community. They are riding together with the poverty we are talking about. They are riding together with the need for fuel that we are talking about. Now theirs is not only about raising school fees for their children. It's not only now about wood fuel for the families or for the institute, but it has now highly been commercialized to the point that people now look for millions of money from these from these negative interventions within the community. Colleagues, the negative impact of this does not only lie on the on the environment itself alone. What about the people? Have you people heard of stories of people who come and they engage the local community into cutting trees, and then they are paid with waraji? Others end up taking waraji and then they indulge into sexual immorality with these people, and that explains the prevalence of HIV in some villages already in the district. Some people could have heard of this, and some people could have not heard of this. I work with the HIV program, and the statistics in some areas, if you ask, you go down the village and start asking, you hear people starting to say, no, you see this one here, that one has been beaten. They are indirectly telling you that, okay, this one has had an intercourse with the brown person who has come to buy charcoal. And the brown person is a suspect. So in the end, people are riding on our ignorance. People are riding on our poverty. They give us disease. They leave us with bare land. In the near future, we are going to have unbalanced rainfall pattern. We are going to lose some tree species that other generations may not get to see. The question is, what should we do? What must we do in order to protect ourselves from this? I said earlier on, we cannot wipe away charcoal burning. If someone is going to open a land for agriculture, and then there are these other shrubs here, someone has opened, the major trees are left. Someone is opening land for agriculture, and then say, okay, I'm also opening another acre to plant in wood trees that I can harvest in 15 years' time. That would be something balancing. We have lived with bushes where we could go and pick dry branches for firewood, and up to now they are still there. They have not gone anywhere. Those ones could be, that is small scale. Can we sensitize our communities and say, look, guys, if you're going to make charcoal from the proceeds of whatever you have picked from your garden for your own consumption, maybe one basin or a bag or 2 bags, that is healthy, because you are not going to create the replacement speed is higher than the speed at which you are picking the trees, than having a group of 40 men going to the bush and they clear 10 acres of land in one day without planting anything. All that is simply because they want to load on 2 trucks. They're going to get their 5,000 from each bag, and someone is going to make heavy millions out of it. And what remains with us is misery. So if we can sensitize people, and I'm glad when I came in, Rosemary talked about alternative livelihood that we can embrace to reduce the shocks that we are putting on the environment, the shocks that we're putting on trees for survival. I want to look at us as a people, as concerned citizens. When we have put in alternative livelihoods, what other guards can we make? Can everyone say, okay, can we make our own laws from our villages and say no cutting trees from someone's garden? So that you don't cross into Matthias's garden and say, I'm going to cut trees for charcoal. If by bad luck you have cut and finished from your garden, it stops in your garden. So if Matthias's garden may be some 2 or 3 acres, another person's garden still has got some fair trees, which is going to help us in generation of rainfall, and then of course those other benefits. It will still benefit the entire community. Can we put in this? Can we agree with our community leaders and say, okay, if someone is going to make charcoal more than 2 bags, that is now more than a domestic consumption target. That is a commercial target. What kind of fine should we levy on this person, which will deter the person from doing this? If it's not going to be a fine, what kind of punishment? Are we going to task the person to plant 20 trees? We have NFA activities around the district. It will just simply be by force. If we're going to have ordinances, you cut this kind of trees, this size, this number, you need to plant this, we'll give you the seedlings, and then be able to monitor. If you can't monitor, we subject you to community service. Those are some of the things that we need. To me, if we can start by sensitizing ourselves, the people we live with. Sometimes back there was a club in our secondary school, which was named "The World Starts With Me." So these actions, we can start by doing those small things. But if many people do those small things, for example, not cutting trees from each other's garden, not burning charcoal, which is more than 2 bags, for example, and then engaging in other alternative means of livelihoods, as earlier on put forward by one of the panelists, then we are going to go a long way, a long mile in this. That is from the community angle. When we come to the leadership angle, I tapped into a discussion yesterday, which was said there's a district ordinance about this. Unfortunately, I've not read the details of that ordinance. But can we move forward to look into the content of this ordinance and check how applicable is it? How relevant is it? If it is so, can it be put in place? Can we look at the enforcement aspect of it? Everyone was making noise yesterday when police released the trucks which are carrying charcoal. Can we continue with this kind of noise? Can we put forward this kind of advocacy? Right now, NEMA is aware that this thing is taking place in Abim. If we made noise, 3-4 people, more again and again, I don't believe in communities handling the laws into their hands, but sometimes I'm forced to think that we need to start creating roadblocks along certain highways, of those charcoal highways. Of course, I'm not meaning the highway to Kotido Lira or Kampala. But if you know that this road, trucks move here to go and get charcoal, what should we do about this road, this community access road? We should inform police. We should inform the environment authorities, the NFA guys, so that they can deploy there. Impounding these people, following the district ordinances that are in place, and strengthening those ordinances, strengthening the enforcement, will bring us a long way. It starts with the will. Me and you having the will, me and you having the idea, going out to the community, talking to my parents, talking to my neighbors, talking to my brothers and sisters about this, and then enforcing. In my garden right now, there are species of trees that you can't just go and cross and say, okay, I'm cutting. Share trees. These are trees that are fed up from time immemorial. The cultural institution. We grow up knowing that areas which has big trees are reserved for elders. You cannot even go and look for firewood there. Can we re-empower these institutions, the Otemabiro, the Ameto, such that when the council of elders can get back the powers they had and say, okay, no cutting this tree, no entering this forest, no doing this in trees which are like this, so that we can restore sanity again into our community. So if we triangulate all these approaches, it will still be in the fight, but I'm sure we will go far beyond where we are right now. Then lastly, I want to call upon everyone, let us plant trees. Whether we are cutting or not, let us plant trees. The last time I went home, I went with the 10 seedlings of Musisi and planted them somewhere. So when I went to check on after 3 months, the results is amazing. I'm tempted to think every time I'm going home, I should go with 10 tree seedlings, different species, not to leave alone the traditional ones that we have at home. So if I go home 3 or 4 times in a year and I keep going with 10 pieces, by the time we close the year, I will have 40 trees at home. And if I do that for the next 5 years, 40 times 5, that's about 200 trees. How many are we in this forum doing this discussion? We are 13. If 13 people manage to do 40 trees every year, in 5 years' time, that is 200 per person times 13. That should probably be 2.6 million trees that we will be planting and taking care of, leave alone the ones that we are stopping people from cutting. Colleagues, we can change this situation. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Matthias, for that insightful talk. Indeed, the issues you've raised here are issues of great importance. Oh, you talked about sensitizing the communities to take up strategies to improve or preserve our environment. That was entered on by Rosemary. That was our first panelist, and I believe it's something we should take seriously. Then strengthening enforcement is also some important point that the authorities have to look at, and of course re-empowering our institutions, most especially the traditional institution. As you've noted, there are areas within our environment you wouldn't just cross, and there are some trees you wouldn't touch, like the shea tree that you talked about. At some point, we believed that actually, if you cut down that tree, you wouldn't survive. I don't know where that disappeared to. Nowadays, people just cut this shea tree, like, and they even brag about it, saying it's actually the best when it comes to charcoal. And, they're destroying something, or a precious resource that has kept us going on for a long time in terms of the oils that we use for cooking or for consumption and such. We have a city, Okere City, that is in Lango, that is seriously tapping into the potential of this tree, the shea tree. It's gold to them. Actually, there's a term they use, they call it vibranium. For people who have watched this Wakanda movie, Black Panther. So it's something precious that need to be preserved. Trees like Thor and others, Unfortunately, those trees that have helped us for so long are the ones people look at as very, very good sources of charcoal. And it's a serious problem. So thank you for your point. If I'm to put something into context, I don't know. I believe all of us know the trend that has gone on from the early 2000s, let's say the 2001 up to today. What I remember in 2000, in terms of food, people would harvest food and like you find every family stable. But nowadays, it's very, very, very common to go to a family and you find they don't even have sorghum. That's very strange. What has brought that on? We are looking at climate change. The predicting seasons in Abor right now is very difficult. You find people growing crops and then rain stops just from nowhere. And then everything dries up and they'll have to wait for another maybe rain cycle and they start planting. Years back, we used not to hear about floods in Abim. But nowadays, there are villages affected by floods, This has not started today. It's, as I mentioned earlier, it's a result of continuous provocation that we've directed towards our environment. And now it's trying to react back. And we've seen, poverty, hunger, flooding that's already occurring, very prolonged dry spells that's affecting us seriously. So it's something that we need to arrest when it's still early. It's not quite early, but I believe when we start now, we can be somewhere. So our time is expiring. We are left with about 4 minutes only, but I would request that we use the same link to rejoin the meeting when we go off. But next, we are hearing from everyone. Since we are few here, I would love to hear from all of us here. What do you think, went wrong in your personal view as a person on ground or as a person who has had this environmental, who has observed these environmental patterns for long? And where can we you know, write these things. Thank you so much. Donaldson, if you have something to say, then we welcome the members, the listeners to say something.
Yeah, sure. I am overjoyed by the submissions from our panelists, very thoughtful of them. And moving forward, I would like us to, as we make submissions, we should draw into action points, because our interest is that we draw these into, so we can be in position to engage stakeholders and design our clarion call on matters affecting our society, and submit to council on matters affecting our communities in regards to environmental protection. It starts with us, and without us, we are headed to no generation. We shouldn't subject our community or our precious indigenous tree species to go into extinct when we are still alive. We should know that climate justice is the blueprint for a fair and sustainable future of life on this planet, which we all should emulate. And it is also a fundamental human right that we all desire to, enjoy. I think you will put up your hand, and then we will pick you up. As you make submission, kindly draw in make some action points so we can make follow up with our stakeholders on that in that regard. Thank you so much. A beautiful deliberation. Maybe let's log in again, since it's just a minute for this to go off. Let's wait it so that we can rejoin.
I think you can just end the meeting and we rejoin, like such that we can go to, to that session.
Okay.
Thank you.